Goðan, daginn, herslingar, and welcome to this special episode of Silph Thyme, where we have special guest, the niftiest, the thriftiest, the snorlaxiest loving person, JRESeawolf, with us here today.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me, sir. I look forward to chatting for a while about PvP.
Yeah, well, obviously the nifty and thrifty articles you post kind of everywhere are the go-to early spot for remix cups showing up, or the various cups in Pro Battle League, as well as they've been around for Silph for seasons now. They're a great starting point for everyone, so I thought it would be ideal to have you in here. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and join us here. And as always, when we have a great guest, I'd like to start by presenting you with high-quality Photoshop artwork here for your Snorlax love. We've got this beautiful piece here. I think it
That's
fits.
awesome. That's great.
And I'll
Excellent film, by the way.
It's a great film. It really fit for the Snorlax Munchlax. And then we managed to get your initial, you tattooed there on the hand to really bring it out.
I hadn't even seen that. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So just
awesome
to make this yours, and I'll send you the full PNG of this to do with whatever you want to enjoy.
Thank you.
As your payment for showing up on this. So we're here to talk about PvP, which is a fun and interesting facet of Pokemon Go that's been gaining a lot of steam in the past year with the introduction of things like the Play Pokemon events and the World Tournament. But for those of you that don't know, Silph has been doing it for significantly longer. And I love both of them, so there's no wrong way to PvP, first of all. You can PvP wherever and however you like. That's the fun part about it. But what we want to do is kind of talk about why you should PvP, the fun of it, and how to get into it. So let's start. What got you into PvP? What got you started down this path?
So I've been playing Go since the second month it was around. My wife started from day one, got me into it about a month after she started. So I discovered our local community. We went out. We went on the grind. Went down to the local parks and walked around late at night sometimes, chasing, there's a Snorlax on the radar. Where is it? Let's go find it. All that fun stuff. Around for, early raids and all that. And then eventually PvP came along. And several folks in my community were interested in it. And they actually started, just like starting the game. I was about a month behind them. So they kind of started with the very first, and I think we're going to talk about this later, but the Silph Arena, their very first cup, the Boulder Cup, which came out about a year before GBL ever existed, back when it was still a twinkle in John Henke's eye, as I like to say. So PvP really started then with live tournaments, where folks would get together in their local communities and just compete. And they came up with, just like we have in GBL now, Silph came up with their own monthly formats. So again, the first one was Boulder Cup. Oh gosh, I don't remember the typings. It was like Fighting, Rock, Steel, I think.
The
Yeah.
Stormery Cup is what it ended up being.
Yes, and right, and the very first cup you could play 3 of the same thing. So their triple Skarmory was very common. But I didn't get into it until the second cup that came after that was called Twilight Cup.
Yep, that's the one.
And I actually didn't even come in until about a week before that month was over. So it was right at the end. But my local community was having their tournament late, and they kind of talked me into coming as part of it. And so I did, and somehow I won that very first cup on the back of Victory Bell, back before Shadow Victory Bell was even a thing, back before Razor Leaf was even a thing. It was like my Victory Bell versus the best guy in our area, his Azumarill, is how it ended. So obviously Victory Bell took it down. So that was fun, and after that I was just hooked. But again, GBL didn't come along for a while, so it was just Silph, and it was monthly. So that's when I kind of started doing my own prepping for the tournament coming up and putting all this information together in front of me to plan a team and how to try and keep winning. And then through that, a couple more months after that, again, I had all this stuff I had put together, and I was just like, well, let me write some of this down, and I'll throw it out on Reddit, and then the rest is kind of history. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's great because you always put value in the cost of powering up Pokemon because when we talk about Silph Arena, right, we have a new meta every month, which I love because when things get stale, I get like I don't really like Go Battle League. Um, it's like I don't want to play the same three Pokemon for 9 months or however long it lasts, but it's like 4 months. But it's like oh
Yeah.
man, I can only take so many double fighter double steel matchups.
Yes.
It's like I don't
Yep.
whether I win or lose, it's not interesting, and I'm bored with it. Whereas Sylph gives us,
Would you say you're sick of Galarian Stunfisk and Registeel? Is that what I'm hearing? Maybe some
yeah,
Bastiodon in there?
yeah. Oh man. And let me be a bundle. I don't blame people for running it. You know, you want the
Oh, no.
rewards, you want it, and that's fine. But it's like, so here I'll just pull up like season one Sylph. I joined it in the Twilight Cup. I was running Pound because Charm didn't exist on Wigglytuff to tell you how much I planned on this.
Yes, that's right. That's
It
right.
was
Yep.
it was oh that was a complete nightmare. But I'd only been playing for literally 1 month. So there's like you should play even if you can just run nonsense. And I was like, all right. So by the third month, which was Kingdom Cup, the Bastiodon Cup, that was the
Ah, there you
first
go.
tournament I ever won, and I won on the back
Nice.
of Double Dragon, and I loved it.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
And
that's cool.
I wasn't even high enough level to finish powering up my Bastiodon. Like I literally wasn't a high enough level to max him to 40. I was only like level 29 or whatever the cap was. So I was running like
Mhm.
a 1472 Bastiodon because I literally wasn't high enough level. But every month, you know, we get something new. You get to bring in fun stuff. And so I've been playing all 4 seasons, climbing each season, really working on getting my way up there. And you can always run something fun. So I started running multiple cups because I'd be like, oh, I really want to build an
Oh, yeah.
Araquanid team with Farfetch'd, which I did for Forged Cup, and it was amazing.
Nice.
Farfetch'd was so much fun. And then I was like, all right, well, let's try with a little spicier team. We'll go with Shadow Charizard and that kind of. So I've powered up
Uh-huh.
just to. So my weird rule, and I highly recommend no one follow this, is I only run 1500 CP Pokemon. I'm just OCD about it. And so I have 294 PvP ready 1500 CP Pokemon with another
Wow.
300 or 400 waiting to be powered up.
That's
Put them
impressive.
so it's like I really really love running crazy diverse stuff. I've got, you know, XL Pawniard when everyone was talking about it in the most recent Halloween Cup. And I'd already had it for like a year because I was like, oh, that's a ridiculous Pokemon. I want to power it up and find a use for it, and I love it. And so
Yeah.
Silph Cups are great because they give you a freshness. And you know, I mentioned this a few times. Like I grew up playing Magic: The Gathering. I still, when I can, find times for it because I love the game. So I was always big in deck crafting, meta building, and that's what Pokemon team building is really trying to figure out your strengths and weaknesses, what pairs well together, and do all that fun stuff. And
Yep.
I mean, I love it almost sometimes more, definitely some more than GBL. I love team building more than I love playing Go Battle League. But in Silph, you know, you get a mix of it. But I love team building. I love doing crazy stuff. I love finding spicy picks. Right, as soon as the GBL remix came out after the move buffs, my Aurora's team went live, and I love it. Right, obviously you're a
Nice.
fellow Dino supporter. Meteor Beam is amazing. Aurora's
Yes.
is so much bulkier than you think. It's got terrible typing, but as long as you get it in the right line, avoiding the right things, it's super
Yep.
good. And so I've been
Well,
just
you run the double dino. You run it with Meganium to
there. You go.
cover
Yeah, yeah.
its weaknesses.
The
Yep.
double dino. I saw that. I think was it PV Poke was also running that one.
Yeah, he started using it after I posted that. That was hilarious.
Meganium's such a great Pokemon too. I'm glad that it's
Mhm.
coming back into the meta with what's going on, especially in the Noctowl winter, as I like to call this current meta, for Meganium to find a spot because it handles the steals so well, which have to be there to deal with the Noctowl. So yeah, I love team building and PvP outside of GBL, in-person tournaments, and the Play Pokemon events lets you do a lot of that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the other
Well,
great...
and
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
and the length is perfect too.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I've always loved about Silph is each cup lasts for a month. So you've got time to schedule your tournament as a local community or multiple tournaments, like you were saying. You
Yeah.
know, you can do multiple if your community is into that. And you have time to get familiar with your team. And you know there's going to be variety out there, and especially if you have those multiple tournaments, you can try several things. You can run one team one week, and then 2 weeks later run a completely different team. Same cup, same format. So I love that about Silph. 1 month I think is like the perfect amount of time. It's just long enough that you can squeeze in all that you want to do, but not so long that it just starts to drag.
Yeah. It feels very fresh. Sometimes if the tournaments get dragged on, like by the fourth week of the month, I'm like, I'm ready for this to be over.
Yeah,
The new meta's
yeah.
already dropped and I want to build a new team. But I can never get burnt out on a cup because a month is a really good time.
Yep.
And one of the things I love about PvP is that it gives you an entirely new way to focus on hunting. Right? People love shiny hunting. People love hundo hunting. Those are both great and fun, but you're like, all right, I've got that stuff. Now you get to look for insane particular IVs to make sure you hit that double Shadow Ball breakpoint on your Knocked Owl to beat Galarian Stunfisk.
Yep.
Or, where I only look for 1500s, I had to burn through so many trades on stuff. And I still, I almost know, I haven't gotten my 1500 Guzzlord, which I have tried very, very hard for.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
Still working on that bad boy. None of the mythicals, but I somehow rolled really well. I've got a PvP weighted Mew at 1495 that I still love because he's super playable. So you're looking at what we would consider boring Pokemon like Hoot Hoot, and you're actively going out and hunting them to find the IV spreads you want specifically for PvP. So even quote-unquote trash non-shiny Pokemon becomes something you want to seek out and find and do your best with. Whenever something drops, I'm like, all right, I need to get a PvP viable one just in case they do something crazy. Like Dunsparce, it was completely unplayable. And then boom, they gave it rollout, and all of a sudden, it's super viable in many, many ways.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of them. Yeah, and it's dangerous too. That thing's nasty.
Dunsparce is fascinating because it doesn't sim super well, but it doesn't ever die quickly, so it always works well as a pivot. Unless they're like in open Go Battle League, if they bring in a Power Up Punch Medicham, yeah, sure. You're just gonna hard lose there, and they'll farm you down. But like in most limited metas, it's always going to get to a charge move or two or three. And while they won't one-hit KO you, they will make anything limp its way out.
Oh, yeah, they hurt.
And so I love that I can search for different, again, less important Pokemon become super important through Silph. So that I'm always trying to hunt down ridiculous stuff, right? We had a Halloween Cup, but Sableye was banned. So I brought out Spiritomb. Which, man, if they give him a second charge move that's not Ghost, I will find a way to run him again.
I look forward to that.
Because I love Spiritomb. He's such a stupid Pokemon. And I think that's how I love playing. I love the derpiest Pokemon. I'm just like, oh, yes. Spiritomb, please, sign me up for him. Avalugg, oh, man, I have brought him so many times. I just love how goofy he is. And so that's the great thing is it gives you it refreshes your enthusiasm for Pokemon hunting outside of shiny checking or hundo checking.
Yep. We're the only ones that get excited about research level stuff because it's like, oh, it might be under 1500.
Yes, I was so excited when we got the most recent Ultra Beast, and I was like, another chance at Buzzwole, because mine was literally the worst chance. It's like the 1452 one, the worst possible option where you can't power it up, and I was like, this is unplayable. And then I was so excited, and then I stole my daughter's extra Buzzwole. And it rolled at 14.99 with PvP waiting, and I was like, yes!
Oh,
I was so
nice.
excited. But we get really excited for level 15 legendaries, right? I have a 1500 Zapdos and Latios, sorry, the non-Dragon Claw one. And I always try and find excuses to use them just because I love 1500 Pokemon. It's my weakness. And legendary 1500s, oh man, I just feel like I'm the king of the world when I bring those bad boys out. But that kind of stuff, like, everyone else is like, okay, it's level 15. That means I have to burn more dust powered up. I'm like, no,
Right, exactly.
don't
Yep.
power it up. It means you can use it in PvP. So it
Yep.
gives you this whole new enthusiasm for going out and hunting. Because whenever a new Pokemon drops, the potential of it, I was out there hard farming for Crabrawlers. I was like, I don't think Crabominable will ever be good, but it could be,
Never
and I
know.
want to
Yeah,
be
that's
ready.
right.
So I'm going to go
Yep.
out and catch every single one I can and hold on to them. It's just like as soon as Amara Aurora's dropped, I was like, I need this. I need this fossil dinosaur. It's terrible typing, ancient powers, it's only rock move. I don't care. I want him. And then he got Meteor Beam, and I just the
Yep.
happiest day in a long time. I was like, because it's so good, right? In
Yep.
Remix Cup, I went 24-1 with my Aurora
Nice.
climbing.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was so good and so much fun. And you're beating Shadow Steelix with Auroras, and it just
Yes.
feels amazing.
Yep.
So
Oh, yeah, those weather balls add up so quick.
they add up
Yeah.
super fast. And Auroras is coming back, everybody. So make sure you go out and hunt it. That's my PSA. It's coming back in, I think, Winter Wonderland maybe 2.
I think it's in. I think part 1 it's in eggs.
Yeah, you would know more than I
Hopefully,
do.
part 2 it'll be wild. I hope.
Yeah. But I saw that it was back on the menu, and I was super excited for it.
Yep. Been a while.
Yeah, and it's like Dubwool. I need Dubwool to come back because
Oh, me too.
I
Mine
thought-
all stink. They're all horrible.
and again, we were doing the Hoopa raids, and I don't care about Hoopa because Hoopa's not low enough for PvP. It's got terrible stats for PvP, but it has a chance of spawning Dubwool.
Yes.
And I got one Dubwool last time, and I was like, oh, I've got one I can reroll now. I can work on getting another Dubwool because Double Kick, the move, completely revolutionized it.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
now, I like it better than Vigoroth because Double Kick is a super strong move, and then it can run Wild Charge or Payback, both of which are amazing. So I was running my subpar Dubwool, meaning not 1500, and I die a little inside, in my remix team. And it's like a really good PvP one, but I'll change it as soon as I get a 1500 because I'm weird. But I ran it with
That's
Payback,
all right.
and so you safe swap in the Dubwool, and they say like they never block the Payback. So they'll bring in Frostlass because everyone's running anti-flyer, and you just throw a Payback, and then they just top left as soon as they watch
yeah.
the Frostlass explode. And I was like, oh, this is so good.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because Dubwool's got that thickness like Dunsparce. Both of them,
Yes.
the move update made them go from mediocre to amazing.
I'm
also-
jealous because all of mine get to like 1470 or 1480 something. They're all. I can't get a good one.
But I love the fact that I'm excited for Hoopa raids only because of a chance of Dubwool spawns, right? That's such a PvP
Yeah.
thing to do.
Yep.
And you know, let me be clear. Have fun. Try and get your Hundo Hoopa, everybody. It's great. Elite. For all of the flaws, you know, going out and doing a Hoopa raid or two with the community is fun because you get to see people. And I get more excited because I've got a chance of Dubwool spawning. Someday, I've been told that Galarian birds will spawn from daily incense. I'm hoping to eventually find one of those. I've seen Zapdos, Galarian Zapdos twice, and it of course ran both times, and that's it for my luck with the Galarian birds. But I'm looking forward to them and hoping they're low enough level I can run them in PvP. But I'm going to jump ahead. At the end, I want to talk about Pokemon we're excited to show up. But since we're talking about Galarian Zapdos, I want Flamigo from Scarlet Violet, right? I love flying fighting types, and I love a ridiculous
Yes.
Flamigo that tied its head in a knot. I'm just on board with that Pokemon.
Yep. Yeah. How long until we get what's? I can't believe I can't remember the name. The other flying fighting
Oh,
one.
Halucha. Yeah. We
Yes.
should get it. And
We've been waiting on that forever. What the heck?
Halucha was on my Alpha Sapphire competitive team back when I played that on DS.
Oh, nice.
I love Halucha. He's such a he's a luchador Pokemon. Like, sign me up. And he looks like he's got really good moves. So he's been data mined for almost, it feels like 6 months. It might not have been quite that long, but it feels.
No, I think it's long. I think it's over a year now.
It could be. So
Seriously.
we need Halucha. I'm on board for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we get really excited for leaked potential stats and when moves will fix it. We're still waiting on Aegislash, which is going to be insane. It will redefine the PvP meta.
That's gonna break metas in half.
Unless they just
now.
do what they're known to do and they could just give it Astonish as a fast move. They change them to work.
Right. Yes.
Like that's the only way.
If they want to stink, just give it Astonish.
Yeah, that's the only way they can keep it from redefining the meta. Even with terrible charge moves, its stats are just so good.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hear the excitement, like the fun of Pokemon hunting, and also it's a great community, right? Everyone who I started PvPing with in Ireland, I still regularly talk to and do tournaments with, even though I haven't lived in Ireland since the beginning of COVID. I still consider myself part of the community. I'm still part of an Irish faction. They're great people. They're the ones who made me like keep playing and keep me invested in it. And so it's great for your local Pokemon community just to, hang out with each other and talk Pokemon, which clearly we all love to do.
Yep. That's awesome that you're still in touch with them. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's why I've started hosting tournaments here in person where I live, because I think they're a lot of fun, and and everyone who starts coming starts enjoying it. They get the bug, and so I'd like for anyone who's interested to know how to get involved in the PvP scene. Because even if you don't have a large community, if you're in a rural location or you just don't have a lot of players in your location, that's okay because there are so many online PvP communities as well you can join and be a part of. That's why it's such a great place to hang out and meet people to talk about and enjoy the game. So you can PvP for so many reasons. And so what we want to do is kind of talk about the big ways to get into PvP, the best ways, things to look at, before we're going to end with kind of a community day is coming up, or the full recap of 2 years community day. So you can get a lot of really good moves in Pokemon with just a little bit of effort in 2 days, which is a great starting place for anyone.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we'll start with the easiest entry for anyone, which is Go Battle League, right? This is hosted in the game. There's a rank system. You want to get up to Legend so you can get your super special cool pose, get your fun cool outfits. And I really like that they're giving unique poses to each season. I think that's fun. I love that this is where a lot of the costume stuff comes in because I do love cosmetics, and being able to kind of put some of that fun stuff in is great. Right, I just rock the Leon pose because it's so over the top ridiculous. I love it. It is my favorite pose, and so like as soon as I saw that pose, I was like, I have to get Legend this season, no matter what. I need this pose. And Go Battle League also is great entry because for a lot of people, you'll probably have some Pokemon already for any of the 3 leagues. So I'll let you talk about a little bit here, if you want to talk
Sure.
about your thoughts on Go Battle League.
Yeah, so it's been around for a couple years now. When it first came out, it was pretty simple. You basically just had Great League, Ultra League, Master League. These days, there's typically cup formats, which come along several times each season. Each season lasts, what is it, about 3 months usually now?
Yeah.
So the specialty cups, you have it down here at the bottom of the slide. So the easiest way to get in is just to build Great League, in my opinion, is the easiest just because everything is still relatively affordable.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry so much about XL candy, other than just a couple of very specific things like, Metacham and Bastiodon. And even those you can build without XL and still have a competitive one. Like you were saying earlier, you had your Bastiodon that was underleveled and you won a Silph tournament with it,
Yeah.
a while ago. So you're never out as long as you have, a team of things that have, good moves on them, that is relatively balanced. That's one of the hardest things in team building is just thinking about, you don't want to run like 3 grasses or 3 fires or something like that. You want to have some balance among the team of, well, what if I get hit with, a big fighting type? And just like in other Pokemon games, you have to think about super effectiveness and what's not very effective and how you balance that out so you can handle whatever is thrown at you rather than just, I've got this Aurorus now that's destroying my team because I have everything's weak to ice, or, Meteor Beamed, I'm done. So,
This is an Aurora
just
podcast.
planning that out and thinking about how do I handle the wide array of things out there. And you're always going to have a couple holes on your team. It's just a matter of minimizing what those are and just planning, what I'm going to kind of face. And that's true in all leagues, but in Great League especially, I think by far you have the most variety because most Pokemon can reach, at least fully evolved Pokemon can reach close to 1,500 CP, which is the cap. So almost everything can, and at some point, at least in the specialty cups, will show up.
Yeah, you can find a place for them.
Yep. Right. Like the gathering you've done. You have all kinds of things that what was it, Pawniard, you were saying you
Yeah.
had that done a year before anybody else picked up on it, and you can wreck with that thing. And of course, like you said, in raids and just in collecting. Okay, I've got a Pawniard entry done. Don't need to worry about that anymore. And for PvP, it can be a beast, and you'd never think of that in any other aspect of the game. So Great League by far has the most variety, just because there's so many things like frickin' Pawniard that you could make use of. Ultra League is where things start getting a little more expensive. Most things there that you really want to use, you can still do without much XL candy investment. There's a lot of Pokemon that are used in raids and just things that you even catch wild, that you evolve them up, are going to be close to 2,500. Your Machamps that you've caught randomly during certain events, or most legendaries you catch, like Giratinas, they come already at just about the right size for Ultra League, stuff like that.
Sure.
So for Master League, that's where you take like things you've built up for raids, because you've already built them up as much as you can. Master League has no CP cap, so you can have something that's at 4,000 CP, and that's actually at a good size for Master League. So there's various ways you can get into PvP. If you're a big-time raider and you've already maxed everything out, well, there's Master League for you. Mm-hmm. If you're just getting into it, the easiest way would be Great League, because that's relatively cheap to build up a team for. And then if you have, a wide variety of things in your Pokedex, things that you've been playing for all 6 years, the game's been around, and you just have a wide range of stuff, you probably have a good team already for Ultra League if you look. So regardless of how long you've been playing or what kind of composition you have in your storage, there's a league for you.
Yeah, and it's great, right? Because for Go Battle League, you can play it anywhere, anytime. You can just pop on and do it. You will immediately get in-game rewards, right? I stock up a lot of rare candy through Go Battle League. I get a good amount of dust. It's the only place that I get regular charge TMs, which I always need. I once spent 27 charge TMs to get the right move on Poliwrath.
Yes, that can happen.
It was the worst thing ever. I expect it with Mew, but with Poliwrath, I just hit the worst statistical luck. And then again, it gives you in-game cosmetics too that you can only get through it. So you can get cool poses, you can get cool outfits. So Go Battle League, it rewards you in-game, which is beneficial for everything. And there's an easy way to go in. And we'll kind of talk about quick approaches or cheap approaches to starting to build your roster a little bit later when we revisit it. But that's Go Battle League if you're just looking for something to play by yourself. And then you can hop on any of the social medias, right? Twitter, Reddit, Discords, wherever you might want to, YouTubes, wherever you want to look, and you can find people who are playing Go Battle League and want to talk about it. So it's a great place that even if you don't have an active community, quote unquote, where you live, you can still easily get lots of people to talk about, give you lots of advice, right? There's a ton of friendly people on the Silph Arena and the Go Battle League subreddits. Tons of Discords and plenty of YouTubers and streamers where you can just pop in and chat, and they're all lovely people.
Yeah, by far the most resources and the largest community, just because, like you said, anybody can jump in and do it.
Yeah.
So.
And then we've mentioned this, and so I want to kind of talk in detail here. Silph, right? Silph Arena, Silph tournaments. We've talked about this. This year, they originally were for in-person, because you used to have to be ultra friends to remote PvP with people.
Yes.
Really go back to the old days. I'm glad that's not returning. But in-person tournaments are a unique, special, and fun thing. There's something great to be said for time tournaments online because they're flexible, long rounds. You've got 3 days to find where you can do a match. So it's very flexible and easy for you to go, and you can play with people all over the world. Right, in my Discord, we host a tournament once a month, and it's mostly people from Ireland because that's where we migrated from our local community at the University College Dublin. But we've got players from Australia joining in North America, and England, and we're happy to have them all, right? It's great, it's fun. it brings us all together. But in-person tournaments are a different type of fun, and I love both of them. That's why I'm working on both of them. Do you want to talk about your experience with in-person tournaments as well?
Yeah, so like I said, in person with Silph Arena is what got me into PvP. My own local community that I had been playing with for a couple of years. This was just the next evolution. PvP came along. There were local tournaments coming up. I was like, oh hey, this is great. Another reason, another excuse to get together. Um, and that aspect of Silph, at least until some of the live tournaments have come along over the last year, those have always been very unique to Silph. GBL doesn't really have anything like that. That's
Yeah.
all online. It's somewhat faceless. Sometimes you'll recognize a name of an opponent. For the most part, you're playing anybody from anywhere in the world, and that's great too. But having the in person with your local community, I mean, we all know Niantic, part of their vision is growing the local communities, and that's
Yeah.
one of the great parts about the game is all the folks that you get to meet that you would never meet otherwise
Yeah,
because
and
you're all interested in the same thing.
it's like
So
with Go
getting together
Fests.
on yeah,
Everyone talks
right,
about how great Go Fests are because you see all the other fans and you talk with them. In-person
yep,
tournaments are a lot like that, but they're smaller and monthly, so you get to keep
right.
interacting with them.
Well, and some of them aren't even small. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes you have like a statewide tournament. I've been to some of those in my own state here in the U.S. and that's awesome too. You get to see a much larger crowd, um, get together with people that you don't see as often, that you don't go out on the grind with for community days and such. So all of that is really neat, and I've always loved that aspect of Silph. And again, until at least recently, that was completely unique to Silph as
Yeah.
well. So I highly encourage, as people start getting into PvP and you go on Silph's site and you see there's perhaps a local tournament coming up, even if you don't play that first time, or even if you just have a team you're somewhat confident in, everyone I've ever been to is very welcoming, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people there are happy to help you learn. We all started out at some point. We were all new entries at some point, and running our triple skarmory
Yeah,
and
yeah.
running Victory Bell before anyone knew what it was and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
um,
they're super. I mean, we
it's a
love
very
talking
friendly
PvP,
environment
so
typically.
just show up. You can go
Right.
on all the websites here at silph.gg, and you can click Find a Tournament, put in your zip code, and they will let you know all registered local tournaments in the area or communities. Even if they're online, you can find local communities of people. And so it's very easy to find a place to go and get involved, get your friends together and do it, and then just start playing. Don't worry
Yeah.
about being good. Don't worry about having great teams. Just start playing and learn to have fun with it, and then you'll naturally get better at team building
Right.
and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
because that's the way to learn, and something that again is unique to Silph. When you play GBL, the match is over and that's it. You don't chat with the other person afterwards. You don't have time to go back and try again versus that team. In Silph, you typically play a stat of 3 against each opponent. So even if you have a bad first game, you're like, oh man, I wish I had, done this differently. You have a chance to do it again against the same opponent. And when the match is over, you have a chance to talk to the opponent and be like, hey, that was kind of cool how you did this. Why do you like this Pokemon? What's good about this one? And what do you think I could do a little bit better?
Yeah, and it's very fun, very enjoyable. Both, and again, I'm hosting in person tournaments, and I also host online tournaments, and I love them both. They're both a ton of fun,
Mhm.
and they really make the community is what keeps you kind of invested in not getting burnt out, which is a huge problem. A lot of people are kind of getting, especially by video game years. This is an ancient game. It's very easy, especially if all you do is go out every day, drop in a gym, claim however many you need to get your coins, shiny check everything in the route, and then do your raid and then head back or whatever. It gets very grindy and monotonous. But talking about the game, playing the game, changing up your teams, hunting for new Pokemon to build a goofy new team, that makes the game fresh and interesting and helps, you keep having fun with it. Because if you're not having fun with it, I don't need a second job. I don't play Pokemon Go so that I can be miserable for another X number of hours a day. And so I find the community building of PvP is a very fun and refreshing way. And, I like competing. I find myself very competitive, and so I enjoy winning, and I enjoy trying to get better so I can keep winning. And whenever
Mhm.
um, I find someone rising up, and when they beat me, I'm like, oh man, I need to learn what they're doing. I need to improve myself, and it's just great and fun and interesting. And then recently, Silph introduced another option that I'm a part of that I'd love to talk about briefly, which is Silph Factions. This is where you get a group of your friends or like-minded PvP competitors together, 7 to 10 people, and every week you face a new opponent, and each member on your team has a different specialized role. So we have 4 specialists who play standard Silph tournaments with their own unique metas. We have a Great League specialist, we have an Ultra League specialist, and we have a Master League specialist. So you basically get 3 people that love GBL, 4 people that love Silph tournaments, and you all get to play and discuss the meta and play a new team each week within your region. It's a ton of fun. It's only 1 match a week, so there's a very low time commitment to it,
Yep.
while still encouraging that great community. And then once you get really good, you can do fun content creation, and you all can trash talk on Twitter, which is, that's half the fun of sports is trash talking. At least, when I grew up, my older brother and my dad both love trash talking me because they were much better at sports than I am. But it's fun because then if you trash talk and then when you win, oh man, it just feels so great.
Oh yeah.
So just like getting to know people because you'll know all of the teams in your faction rank, and there are tiers. So you're not going to be playing against the best players in Europe when you just started. You're going to be playing in the open field where you're going to find a lot of people at your level. That's another great thing is there are regular promotions to these tiers of quality in faction to ensure that you have difficult matches but not wildly unfair matches. So it kind of blends the best of both worlds. It brings Go Battle League players and Silph specialist players together. So you can just get your group of friends, or you can also go to Silph's Discord and just say, hey, I want to join a faction. Is anyone recruiting? Here's how I've been doing in GBL or whatever. And someone will pick you up. So you can find people that want to talk about your hobby and your PvP and bring you in. So Factions
Oh
is a
yeah.
great thing. It's easy to start up and it's fun to run. I'm the co-captain of the Dublin Decidueyes with my co-host Zacharias, and we love it. It's super fun. Always have a blast with it. Our chat is always full of discussions of everyone asking for thoughts on their teams. So I technically get to meta build for 3 teams because I don't touch Ultra League or Master League. Anything over 1,500 is not important to me. I'm very small-minded like that. But I'll always
No,
love
that's
weighing
fair.
in on the Great League player as well as the 2 metas that our 4 specialists are playing. So we always get to talk about that, have fun, and practice with each other, which is great too. So like these as why PvP is so much fun. It builds a great community. It's super interesting. And then in the last year, we've had this one huge change, which is Niantic realized that PvP is really interesting and awesome and people want to do it. And so we started having these play Pokemon huge regional tournaments that lead up to world championships, which is, regular Pokemon main series games have been doing that forever. It makes sense that Pokemon Go, now that it has Go Battle League, meaning its own stable practice system, you can go and compete in these. And even if you're not a great player, you should go to the regional qualifiers because it's much like those statewide tournaments you were mentioning. It is huge. It is full of big fans, super awesome, friendly people. And it's just a blast to hang out with hundreds of Pokemon fans for a
Yep,
few
and,
days.
and it's a great way to learn too, because I mean,
Yeah.
you do have a wide range of players that are there. Some beginners, some very experienced players.
Yeah.
They usually show, especially as the tournament goes on, you'll see some of those more experienced, more uh, winning players up on the big screen, and you can
Yeah.
watch every play they make right there. It's on full display. They stream everything. If you're not able to make it to the tournament, you can tune in that way and watch what's going on. And
Yeah.
the commentators they have for that are awesome.
Yeah.
All the commentators they've had so far
We've really
for
improved. And I mean, all the commentators were good, but I'm saying they really
yeah,
realized how important commentators were. And so the people who have been doing this for Silph and for Factions and all of this stuff, they brought in the right people, and they've been doing a great
Right.
job.
Yeah, that's who they snatched up as people that have that experience
They're
and
super
really know
knowledgeable.
what's going on
Yeah.
in each play and can call out, oh, he's going to throw this, and if it's not blocked, it's going to mean this, and if it is blocked, it means it, and they just break it down on the fly so well.
Yeah.
They've done an awesome job with that.
Yeah, it's very fun to watch and engage with. And, any of you all who regularly listen to my podcast, we had world champion Dancing Rob and world's fourth place Lurgan Rocket on here. Um, Hearing the high-level players talk about the game is fascinating. Watching them play the games is fascinating. And the thing that we learn from a lot of these players is that it's an open format. You bring 6 Pokemon in Great League, 1,500 CP max, and then you pick 3. So it's kind of a hybrid from Go Battle League and Silph, except for the meta's open. But well-prepared players can really run whatever they want. The meta's not as narrow as it often shakes out, right? Lurgan Rocket made it to 4th place running Cresselia Diggersby core, which we just didn't see anywhere.
Yeah.
After this recent buff, Me Weedle blew everyone's mind with Mantine making it and winning the finals,
Yep.
which I hate because I hate Mantine. Because I always call the baits wrong on Mantine.
Yes, me too.
I don't want to see more Mantine, so I'm mad about that. But also, it was super impressive and really cool to see. But I love that people, you bring your necessary coverage, but then they'll find either signature Pokemon, Cindy, with the Ember Kanto
Oh,
Ninetales.
the Ember
Yeah,
Ninetales.
yeah.
Yes.
And then she brought Shadow Victory Bell to the Worlds.
Yeah.
And it was great, right? We love seeing unique picks and these people that know how to play them because when you're put on the spot, if you're not familiar with that Pokemon, it can really cause your game plan to get thrown out the window. And
Yep.
so being able to play to your style and your methods actually gives you a good advantage when you know what you're doing, which I don't yet, but hopefully I'll get to knowing what I'm doing at some point. But it's really super helpful and really interesting. And so playing PvP in all these other fun ways like Silph and Go Battle League can help you go and play the regional qualifiers, go to the World Championships to become the very best like no one ever was. And so hopefully all of that has shown you why PvP is fun, all the different ways you can find a comfortable place to do it. And now I want to talk about kind of how do we get into PvP? Because it can, like I said, I've never been over a million dust on my account because I'm always powering up. Even if I don't need them, I'm always powering up Pokemon for Great League. I'm just like, oh, I would really like to power this up or that up. I'm powering up my 3rd Lickitung because I finally got a good IV one. My first 2 were lucky, but they were cheap because they were lucky. But I was like, all right, if
Yep.
I'm ever going to use Lickitung in a serious tournament, I actually need a good non-attack weighted one. Because my first Lickitung was 15, 15, 12, which is terrible. But it required
But it was
some
cheap.
XL candy. So I was like, all
Yep.
right. But so how do we start building? We're going to talk about Great League because that's the broadest league and that's what the worlds are in. So I think this is the best long-term investment. For Master League, it's so narrow that it's run your hundos, basically. Make sure you've got a hundo Dialga.
Yeah,
And
basically.
go from there. But Great League, you can do very, very well with a lot of options. And especially, you can play Great League successfully for very, very cheap. So if we're starting to build a team, what would you say are your thriftiest uh, great Great League options?
So there's 2 costs that come into play. One of them is, of course, the cost to power up, which, depending on what it is, can be a decent amount of Stardust and candy. But there's also the second move. So usually in the articles I've been doing for, gosh, way too long now, I think 4 years, uh, the things I usually recommend the most are those with a cheap second move. Because if you start with that, you already got a tremendous amount of savings. So all of your starters cost only 10,000 dust to add a second move. And most of the starters to this point have had their community day already. So they've had their very powerful community day moves that come along with that. They're tailor-made for PvP for
Yeah,
the most part.
yeah,
Almost all of them are useful to some degree. And then you've got stuff like, Raichu. Again, there's something you would never use in raids, but it's awesome in PvP because of just how cheap it is to build and how many metas it has shown up in, how many different cups over time. So that's always the best place, in my opinion, to start looking is what's had a community day, because most of those have had decent PvP moves added, and then those with the cheap second cost or second move cost, the 10,000 um, uh, dust.
Yeah, like
So
Noctowl. Noctowl is
yes,
dirt
right,
cheap and is arguably the strongest Great League Pokemon right now.
yeah,
Because
right.
it's a flying
Yeah,
type.
Noctowl, Pidgeot,
It can beat a
several of
steel
those.
type, right?
Yes.
What in the world is Noctowl doing beating a ground steel? But it can. That's
Yep.
how powerful Noctowl is, and it's a 10,000 dust second move. It is
Oh yeah,
super
dirt cheap
affordable.
to build one from
Um,
the ground up. You could
yeah,
build one today and barely invest anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even have to be great IVs to be good. It's just you
Mhm.
need the perfect IVs to beat two shield Stunfisk, which is never the position you want to be in. That's just the
Right.
worst case scenario. But you can get a subpar IV, dirt cheap Noctowl, and just start running it. That's what I did in
Yep.
the catch cup. I was like, all right, here's a Noctowl. It's 1,500. It's attack weighted, but it's only going to cost it. I'm not going to. You didn't see that many steals in the catch cup, so like I wasn't too worried about its need to have the lasting power there, and it worked fine. Um, and then starters, Venusaur is amazing. Venusaur made it. Shadow Venusaur is even better. But
Yep.
both of them, like they've got surprising bulk. They've got great coverage. They beat the fighters, and Frenzy Plant's an insane move.
And
Um,
even the typing is awesome
yeah,
because of what poison resists that grass does not.
yeah. And so you only really are worrying about Psychic when it shows up and Ice types, which probably are going to show a little bit more with the increase of flyers. But
Yeah.
Venusaur is still
A little
very
bit.
good. It can even threaten your steals just because of how strong Frenzy Plant is.
Yep.
Meganium, I think we're going to see more of in the upcoming regional qualifiers, specifically because it's so good as a steel answer, and everyone's bringing steel to deal with the flyers. And
Because it comes with
Meganium is
that
just,
earthquake.
yeah,
Blows most of the steals away with one shot.
it's got Earthquake, and it's so bulky that it can usually soak one charge move without a problem. So in the zero shield closing, it's really hard to overcome in a lot of situations if you get it lined up. Um, so I love Meganium. Serperior has seen some play. It definitely sees a lot of Silph play. But you can give it Aerial Ace, so it's got flying coverage, or you can give it Leaf Tornado for the debuff, which I always,
Which will always go off for the debuff when you're facing it and never go
yes.
off when you're using it.
Yep.
I've discovered.
I ran it for two tournaments, and I forget which cup it was, but I ran it in both of them. In one of them, I landed 75% of the debuffs, and it was amazing. And the other one, it felt like it was 25%. It was just like, it averaged out eventually, but one tournament it was a rock star, and the other tournament it felt like dead weight, because it just never
Yep.
landed on that. But I love Superior. It's a great design, and it's a fun Pokemon. Chestnut, I think, has potential once it gets Frenzy Plant. Um, right?
Yes.
We're all just kind of waiting for that because it's fighting grass type. That's not Breloom, whom I love, but
Right.
he's just too glassy. Um,
Yeah, Chestnut's like right on the verge.
yeah,
I agree. Once it finally has its community day, that's going to take off too.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to that with him. I will say Swampert, I think, is the most broken starter of all of them because it's the only
Yes.
one that sees play in all three leagues. It's like Swampert can hold its own in Master League. It's great in Ultra League, and it's great in Great League. So Swampert is something everyone should invest in and have one. He's just that good. I'm trying to think.
And then for the fires, you've got Wing Attack
Yeah,
Charizard
Wing Attack
rising up
Charizard
now.
just got a buff that's huge.
Yeah.
And Charizard's a Swiss Army knife of a Pokemon because you can totally build a team that relies on its Dragon Breath for stable damage, or Wing Attack for those great charge moves, or Fire just to deal with steals if you're playing them. I think Wing Attack is kind of running away with it now because the energy
Yeah.
gain is so good and Blast Burn is such a powerful move. Um, but I'm sure there will be limited metas where Dragon Breath comes back into viable.
Mhm.
Blaziken, it's glassy, but it hits so hard, and it's got Brave Bird if you need it. It's like,
Or Stone Edge or Blast Burn. You never know what's coming.
yeah, you don't know what's. And I love that it's so powerful. It doesn't need Blast Burn. It can just use
Yeah.
Blaze Kick to knock stuff out anyways,
Yeah,
um,
it's true.
which is kind of crazy when you think about it. I'm hoping they give some love to Typhlosion. Um, it's got two great fast moves and blast burn, but solar beam is just not what it wants.
Yeah.
Um,
It's nice when you get the occasional nuke on a water that's not expecting it, but
yes.
other than that, yeah, it could use some help.
Yep. But so like the starters, they're great. They're cheap. They're spawning everywhere. Raichu as well, because Volt Switch is good energy generation and damage. So you can really start with and then Hoot Hoot, right? So right there you could run Hoot Hoot, Venusaur, Swampert, the three cheap Pokemon,
Oh,
and that
easily. Yeah,
that
that's a
that team
solid
will
team.
climb for you. That team will give you good coverage. It's a little rock paper scissory, meaning you kind of need to make sure you get the right lineups, but it's a very playable team.
Hmm.
So
Well, and all of them have a way to climb out of some bad spots
yeah,
too. I mean, Noctowl with the Shadow Ball now, Venusaur, Sludge Bomb is a great equalizer, and Swampert. I mean, you can run Earthquake or Sludge Wave and get the coverage you need there too.
yeah.
So,
They're all Pokemon that don't just kind of get deleted in a bad matchup, unless if Shadow Victory Bell comes out against Swampert, yeah, you're done.
yeah,
But
that will be quick and bloody, but
generally speaking,
yeah.
um, you're good to go. Another great place to go, Dragonite. I mean, I prefer Dragonair, but Dragonite is cheap because he's going to be like level 18 somewhere in that range once
Yep.
he's fully
And
evolved
especially
completely.
down there in Great League, you really don't even hardly need a second move
No,
most
yeah,
of the time.
Dragon Breath, Dragon Claw is enough most of the time. Superpower is good coverage for him though, so you can
Yeah.
start out with one move on him and then work it into two moves, and then
Yep.
you'll be in a good spot. So if you're looking for something a little more flexible, Superpower Dragonite is one of those where he kind of is safe to swap into because they're going to want to bring in a Steel or an Ice, and you can probably get to a Superpower and at least threaten a Shield.
Yep.
So I think those are some good starting mons. I'm trying to think. Wigglytuff is another good one.
Yeah, I was gonna say Charmers or Razor Leafers. I mean, as much as some some players detest seeing them, those are super cheap builds because
Yeah,
again, they usually don't even need a second move or something like Wigglytuff only costs it's one of those cheap ones. It only costs 10,000 dust for the second
yeah.
move.
So Wigglytuff's a great one.
Yep.
And then yeah, Charmander,
Altaria is a decent one,
Altaria
although
is
that
another
takes a
that
lot of candy.
takes a lot of candy, but it's a 1 kilometer walk candy, so
Yep.
it's not too
You
bad.
can build it up pretty quick, yeah.
And it's Community Day. Moves are coming up this weekend, which is great because Moonblast is slightly better than Dragon Pulse,
Hmm.
specifically for the Umbreon matchup and the um, against Scrafty. It's also a little bit more helpful.
Yep.
Just if you have an Obstagoon, I think. Yeah,
And the
Obstagoon you have to.
Guzzlord that you're desperately trying to get to 1500 too.
Yeah. Someday I'll get
One
there.
day.
But yeah, Altaria is a really good one because it's got a cheap second move, and it's just a bulky bird. I climb to my legend climb usually involves me just falling back on Altaria
Mhm.
because I love it. Dragon Breath is good damage. Sky Attack is fast enough, and it's just got great stats. So it's
Yep.
you kind of want to think about Pokemon that you can run one glassy Pokemon if your other two you can kind of make up the shield loss. It's kind of how my general go to for a 3-person team. You can like
In Great League especially,
yeah,
bulk is very important.
bulk
Partly
is good.
because, like you were saying, you'll just last even in bad matchups. But the way the CP formula is calculated, attack weight is so much higher than the defense and the HP.
Yeah,
So you can really squeeze a very good overall stat product of something bulky much much easier than you can, something that's very attack heavy like Gengar.
yeah, for sure. So and then I think let's see, I think the cheapest steel, and this is not super cheap, but Galarian Stunfisk. It hatches in 7K eggs. So
Hmm.
as soon as you get it, I'm just checking real quick. It's about 30,000 dust to power it up to Great League, which is not bad at
Hmm.
all. And then
Oh,
you've got your second move, which is 75,000 on it, which is annoying. But
yeah.
100,000 total that's a pretty easy amount of dust to get to. And Galarian Stunfisk is just super good. Great typing.
Or as another option that's kind of overlooked these days, but I think shouldn't be, Melmetal.
Yep.
If you have the mystery box, you can grind for that what is it, every week
Every
now?
3 days, you
And
can get a new box.
yeah, and get right. Oh, that's right. It is every 3 days now. So within a week or two, even though it costs a lot of candy, you can have all the resources you need to build one of those up from
Yeah.
scratch, and that's an excellent steal that I'm a little surprised more people aren't running it
Yeah,
because the
because
coverage it has
it's
too.
got Thunder
But
Shock, so it's fast charging, and then it's got Superpower Rock Slide, so it's got lots of good
yep,
coverage.
yep,
So yeah, I love. I ran him in the first regionals qualifier, Voyager or whatever it was. I ran him as my steal for that slot, and I love him. I think he's great, and it's very easy to kind of farm one because you can get
exactly. Yeah,
every 3 days. I also
don't
accidentally
have to rely
deleted a
on an
hundo
event
one, which
or
made me
what's in
cry.
eggs or any of that.
Yeah,
It's just you can grind for it whenever you feel like it.
yeah, it's always there for you, and you get the candy and the dust you need while you're catching the rest of them. So
Yep.
it's a solid and good option. And then let's say what's an easy cheap fighting type? I would say it's probably Machamp, right? You can
Yeah.
easily get him. He's very cheap, very effective. Shadow Machamp is great. Regular Machamp's he's playable. Scrafty you get from the 12K eggs. He's a little more expensive, but he works very well. He's very flexible because he doesn't lose to the ghosts. Metacham is the king, but he's not cheap. So let's
Yeah.
use that to talk about what are the best long-term investments, would you say? They may cost more, but it's always going to be relevant if you put the money into it, and they don't remove all of its moves, which even with the nerfs to Razor Leaf, Shadow Victory Bell has still been worth it. The nerf to Charm, I don't think it's actually as harmful as people feel like it is. It's kind of like the Wall Rain nerf, which was necessary. People are just I mean, I still see a million Shadow Grand Bull, but generally speaking, in the play Pokemon tournaments, we're not seeing Ninetales anymore because of the nerf, which is why Umbreon is showing up everywhere. And
Yeah. And that pendulum will swing back
yeah,
the
yeah,
other way eventually. It always does.
yep. But so let's talk about long-term investments, even with a slight nerf um, to a move. What do you think is great stuff to just like start building or thinking about building, searching for when you're getting into PvP?
Yeah, so I mean, a number of them for Great League, at least we just talked about Venusaur, Swampert, Altaria. Some of those cheap ones are persistent top of the meta
Yeah,
options,
for
and
sure.
because of their typing, because of their moves, because of their bulk, they all always probably will be relevant in PvP. They're all very safe long-term investments. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but all three of those specifically are going to be available with their community day moves in, what is it, 4 days from now
Yeah,
with
from this
with
recording.
December Community Day. So those are a great place to start. Beyond that, the best thing if you're looking for long-term investments, honestly, the best place to start is probably to go to pvpoke.com and look at the rankings he has on there.
Yeah,
They're not perfect. I mean, no rankings are ever 100% perfect. For the most part, you look at the Great League. Yeah, there you go. You can
yeah.
pull
I'll
it
try to
up.
pull it
So
up.
if you go to rankings, yeah, there you go. So
Yep.
for Great League, you look at the top, 25, 30, 35 picks on here. These are up here for a reason. They have excellent moves. They have, in most cases, longevity where there's not stuff come along that's ever going to replace it. I mean, like Galarian Stunfisk, like you were saying earlier, there's nothing else like it.
Yep.
And even if you look ahead to future generations, there's probably nothing that's really going to replace that, bump it out in its role that it fills.
Yeah.
So this is always a great place to start. You can even, if you go up to the top, like we were talking about earlier with the cost, in the little search bar there, search Pokemon. If you type in 10K, that'll show you every Pokemon with its ranking that has that 10,000 second move cost.
There's some
So
great
these are some
options here.
cheap options,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
And you
gosh,
can see, I mean,
DoorDash. Love
there's
him. Whiscash.
yep,
Um,
there's a ton of them that are in the top, 50 or so picks.
yeah, even the top 100
So
is still usually pretty viable for Open Great
yes,
League.
right,
Right, because I'm looking down. I'm like, yeah, no, I can totally. Charizard, I think is great. Shadow Beedrill is a Silph Arena All Star. I love Shadow Beedrill.
oh yeah,
So yeah, like you can sort and kind of see where to invest your dust. I think that stuff is super great and valuable.
Those are all relatively safe, and then you can also look at, instead of just looking at Great League, you can look at, whatever format is out there right now. PV Poke will keep this up to date. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, all the faction stuff is on
Factions. Just because
here.
Silph's not running
The
right now,
current
I know I'm
GBL Cup
looking
will
at
be on
Timber.
here.
And you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can. I invest in so with factions. Gligar is number one, and Gligar and Gliscor both got a buff with the wing attack buff. So I'm like, yeah, I should totally power one up in practice using it here because I might want to use it. Now I did. I originally had it in my remix team anyways. I ran Gliscor because getting to Earthquake quicker when I knew people were going to be wanting to run steel types to deal with the flyers. I was like, oh, Gliscor's great. And he was great. I ran my team was Gliscor lead, Dubwool, Safe Swap, Auroras, Closer for the remix. And it just absolutely, whenever you throw in Dubwools, I swapped it once I got to rank 15 because I was getting so many Pelipper leads. So I swapped to a Pelipper mirror match because Gliscor doesn't like Pelipper, and Pelipper is great. So I was like, all right, I'll just put in Pelipper. If it's a mirror, I stay in and I don't care. Otherwise, it's going to do most of the same wins that Gliscor was going to get with a little less health, but I can make that up with Double and Auroras in the back. Um, so you can
I've been running Pelipper for the last week myself.
Pelipper's so good, right? As far as we're talking about long-term investments, Pelipper was always viable, but the wing attack buff really just made it, because now it gets to Hurricane an entire move faster, which helps it in the big matchups. Like it can beat Altaria now if they don't call the bait, or if you don't bait and they don't shield when it throws the Hurricane, and it gets there fast enough that you don't have to worry about its health as much. And Weather Ball has always, even with the nerf, Weather Ball is still very good, very viable, very important.
Oh, and the funny thing is, with the buff to wing attack, the Weather Ball comes just as fast now as it used to.
Yeah.
Because of the extra energy from wing attack now. So it's back to where it was pre-Weather Ball nerf.
Pre-nerf, just to really let Pelipper shine. And so Pelipper, I think, is a great investment. Trevenant, that's a more expensive one, but it's a good long-term investment. It always feels, it's, other than my GBL team, I run Diggersby, so I'm okay with Trevenant because even with Seed Bombs, Fire Punch is just faster, and Shadow Claw does nothing to it. So like I like seeing Trevenants, but for most people, it's a very safe and very solid pick because even when you lead it against Altaria, it can throw a Shadow Ball. It doesn't like Noctowl as much for obvious reasons, but Altaria, which was the other big flying lead, Trevenant can at least make it limp away or force the shields, and you can make up for it there.
Even things that burn it, like Talonflame or Charizard, it threatens with that Shadow Ball.
Yeah.
And it can legit beat them if they're not careful.
Yep. It makes it very strong, very good. I think if you're looking for a long-term investment, a great option is Medicham. It's expensive, but it was the best fighter before level 50 existed, even when it maxed out at 1426. I have my maxed out Hundo that I ran in 2 tournaments before level 50 came out, and I was like, I can't get rid of him. I love this Pokemon. But now that level XL Candy came out, Medicham is just so bulky, such great typing, wonderful move sets. We're seeing people get a little more creative. It used to just be Ice Punch for coverage and Psychic for closing power. We're seeing people run Power Up Punch, Ice Punch now, so that it's better with the flyers and stronger with the steals. I really like Power Up Punch, so maybe I love buff moves too much, right? Maybe I get too addicted to raising my stats and lowering opponent's stats. Probably.
But something like Medicham has the bulk to make it work, though, because you can fire off several and still have it alive to get the Ice Punch or the Psychic later.
Yeah, which is great. Like in Great League, you can throw a Power Up Punch against Registeel, eat the Zap Cannon, and farm it down because it can't get the debuff. You'll either be neutral or +1 depending on how Zap Cannon lands. And
right.
You'll have enough energy to throw a boosted Psychic or Ice Punch in whatever comes in next, which is enough threat to do it. So like Medicham is MVP as far as expensive mons go that I recommend building in for a long-term investment. It's definitely always been worth it for me.
Yeah, the typing combination and moves of, I'd say really the first 10 things on this list that I'm looking at in front of me, they're all very worth it. I mean, you have tons of normal flyers, but Noctowl is by far the best. Registeel, there's nothing else like it. Galarian Stunfisk, there's nothing else like it. Medicham, there's not. I mean, these are all very unique threats with their typing combinations and their moves. They're going to be around, I think, as long as PvP is.
Yeah, for sure. I will give the one caveat for Bastiodon. I know we've got some big Bastiodon enthusiasts. It doesn't see play in the regionals because it's a very one-note Pokemon. In
Yeah.
the blind GBL, it will always be good because a good lineup on Bastiodon and it never needs to shield anything. It's just a free extra shield, basically. But if you're really if you're limited in Dust and you're thinking about going into the Play Pokemon events, Bastiodon it's a little too narrow in how it works for it to be taking up one of those essential 6 slots. But in Open GBL and whenever it's allowed in Silph, it's always a powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 2 of those built as well because I had to build my lucky one when level 40 was where it capped out, and then I had to get a new level 51 and power it up. So 900,000 dust total or something like that between the 2 of them.
Yeah, that one gets a little ridiculous, but it's great when you have it.
Oh man, I mean, anyone who's run Bastiodon and like they swap into Altaria, and you're just like, oh yes, this is all I need.
Yeah, right.
It's gonna slowly tap down and come out with 2 charge moves, 100 energy, and still 75% HP. And I don't even care what comes in at this point. You win the match at that stage if you get a bad lock in against Bastiodon. So
I mean, we could spend an entire podcast just talking about the long-term investments, but I really do think that's the best place to start for
sure.
any given open league or any limited cup format that's coming up. This is where I always start, is PV Poke.
We had Empoleon Dynamite on the show to talk about how he codes and how he checks this stuff, and PV Poke is an invaluable resource for every form of PvP.
And specifically for... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, so specifically for team building, he has a team builder tool on here as well, up at the top, where you can pick a team of 3 or a team of 6, depending on what you're playing. And it'll show Again, you've got the drop down up there for Great League, Ultra League, Special Cups, whatever. And you can throw 3 Pokemon that you think have pretty good synergy together, and then rate the team here, and it'll show you where your biggest holes are.
Yeah, I don't know how.
It'll have literally puts up like a big X for where you have bad matchups.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is a great team. And then I'm like, how am I triple weak to Swampert again? This
right.
is my 4th triple weeks. For some reason, I always find myself weak to Swampert. Maybe it's because like the mons I like to build, they're weak to Swampert. But I just always find that my team is overly weak to Swampert for some reason. So I need him not to get a huge resurgence. He's still very common, but he's not like every team common. So I have to check on that. But yeah, PV Poke is a wonderful resource. If you want to get a deep dive into how to use PV Poke, look at episode 5, I believe, of the podcast, where we had Empoleon Dynamite, the coder, creator, host, everything, the PV Poke, on to kind of walk through. And it's a wonderful resource. So there's some great stuff to go. And then we started this with Medicham, the XLs that are worth it, because XL Candy is a huge investment for a lot of people. I think we can safely say Medicham is my number 1 XL Pokemon. I think Bastiodon, we mentioned, he's super good. Lickitung,
Lickitung, you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That's always going to be solid.
Lickitung is always going to be solid, super bulky. Sableye, especially with the Charm nerf, makes him a lot safer because that's his only weakness. So he's a solid investment. I love Diggersby. At first I was like, man, he should be good, and I think he's terrible, but I just wasn't playing him right. And then after Lurgan Rocket started making rounds with it insanely, I was like, all right, I'm gonna master Diggersby, and 100% climb to legend with him. He's such a good closer because he's got so much bulk. Earthquake does tons of damage. Fire Punch it beats Trevenant faster than Speed Bomb, or Seed Bomb. It can beat Skarmory with it because of its bulk. It can outpace Noctowl if you do it right, since it loses its nuke and Shadow Ball. And Diggersby's got an equal amount of bulk. So I do really love Diggersby. I would not invest in Wobbuffet unless you love Silph Cups. I have a maxed out, and it has to be a purified Wobbuffet because it has to have return. It's never going to be mainstream meta. as long as Defense Deoxys exists and does basically what it does but better because it has two viable moves.
Yep.
Azumarill, I think, is going to keep climbing. It fell off a
Have we
long
not
time.
even talked about Azumarill yet?
Yeah, well, because we had Nidoqueen before
Yeah.
the Poison Fang nerf, basically running the table and was on every team at Worlds. So everyone stopped running Azumarill because
Yeah.
Nidoqueen gets to farm it down. And
Not anymore.
yeah, not anymore. And so I think Azumarill is going to keep climbing. I
Hmm.
just built an XL Azumarill, which sounds crazy, but my legend team that ran Azumarill, which was this was my Leon team, so back in season 10, was Altaria, Azumarill, Medicham. Very boring. But I was running non-XL Azumarill specifically because it won the Azumarill mirror. My only
Yes.
Azumarill
Yep.
answer was non-XL Azumarill because it does more damage with less bulk. So it was like,
Well, and it wins CMP ties,
yeah,
so
and it
always
wins the
fire
CMP
charging moves
ties as
first.
well. So like there is play. I have two of them now, but both of them have different play, and I like that. But I literally just for this Great League was like finally like, all right, I'm sitting on 500,000 dust. It's burning a hole in my pocket. I'll finally build this XL Azumarill I've been sitting on for a year and a half. And it was great, right? It was soaking up moves left and right, and I just smiled with how much damage it soaked. Um, so I would definitely say Medicham, Lickitung, Sableye, Azumarill are my four top XLs. I would put Diggersby higher, but that's because of my personal preference. Rather, I think Diggersby needs a team built around it. Medicham, Lickitung, and Azumarill can literally be slotted into any team and perform well, I think.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with that.
So we've got a community day coming up. This episode will be out before it, so community day is in a day or 2 days, depending on how long it takes me to edit this. What should we be hunting this community day to get us ready for PvP? Because there's some really good Pokemon uh, on this, because it's December, so we get everything. Some really good ones for Silph and for General. What would you recommend? What's your top stuff?
So I actually have an article that's going to be coming
Yeah,
out, and
you don't have to
hopefully
spoil
it'll
too
be
much. I'm
out.
not asking for you to, give me
Oh no,
all the
no,
scoop
that
answers
that
yet.
I don't mind spoiling it. That's fine. So the list you have here is actually pretty good. So Swampert and Venusaur had their community day classics,
Yeah.
the first couple of those this past year, and they're coming back in December. If you don't have those, get them. I would
Yep.
say those two are probably your absolute top priority.
For sure.
Venusaur for Great League and Ultra League. Swampert, like you said earlier, that's good in all three leagues. So you can never have enough Swampert and Venusaur candy and good candidates to build. Even if you don't build them now, and you choose to invest in them later, or you need to gather more dust, get them while they're available and get their moves on them now.
Yeah.
Because both of them, this is probably the last time we'll be able to get them with their exclusive community day moves.
And I mean, they're good enough. They're worth an elite TM in the future, but grabbing them
Mhm.
now saves
Right.
you that TM.
Exactly. And that's the best thing about the, community day rehash is no elite TMs necessary. So I also agree on here you have Walrein. I know it's kind of fallen a little bit since they nerfed Icicle Spear, but it's still great. And I still see it all the time in Great League over the last week. It's still everywhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we were talking earlier about Bastiodon. You're not going to see it in a lot of live tournaments. But it's fantastic in PvP in general. In limited formats, in Open Great League, Open Ultra League, it's still really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just put up there Altaria as well. So Altaria is not going to be spawning in the wild,
Yeah.
I don't think,
No,
during Community
it's in
Day.
raids.
Yeah, it's in
And
raids, and um, if you have the candy for it already, though, certainly evolve one for Moonblast because that has some nice coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let's see what else. I had some notes real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, Talonflame. We haven't really talked about Talonflame yet. Oh yeah, there you do have it on
I
here.
have
So
it down, but we haven't talked
Talonflame
about it,
got
surprisingly.
it got Incinerate, which is it has taken off in
Yeah.
Ultra League especially. So get one of those for Ultra, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Again, one that can be built up to about 2,500 CP. Uh, Other ones I was thinking about, so, and again, you kind of have them on the list. Umbreon is really good to have in PvP. In Great League, it's fantastic. In Ultra League, it's good, but it requires a lot of XL
Yeah, it has to
candy.
be. You need the hundo basically. You need a
Yes. Yeah,
hundo and
basically.
level 50. So I mean, it's worth if you
Right.
get one, save it for that. But
Yes.
um, Umbreon, the rank one Umbreon is actually the rank one. The 0-15-15 performs the best of all Umbreons in Great League. It's with Charmers dropping out. Umbreon
Mhm.
is just such a bulky Pokemon that it's a very good investment. I remember the Ferocious Cup was the one where you basically had to have an Umbreon or you lost back in I think
Yeah.
season 2,
Yes.
and this was before Elite TMs existed and no one was playing during the EV Community Day or saved Umbreon with Last Resort. Why would you? And so I had to like
Right.
track down a person in Ohio who had a spare one that I could get to trade just so that I had like an awful 1480 attack weighted Last Resort Umbreon because you had to have it
Yep.
because it's so bulky and safe. And even against
And with the
Metachams,
Last Resort, it beats other dark
yeah,
types. That's the
you
best thing
you
about
have to have
Last
Last
Resort.
Resort so that it wins the
Yep.
mirror match. Psychic, I mean, getting one with Psychic is good for those niche cups. It was showing up a lot in one of the recent cups. The one that I was seeing a lot of Dragalge because the poison types were showing up. Was it the Halloween? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was the
That
last
was out a lot in
last
that. Yeah.
GBL season. Running a Psychic Umbreon had its play because there were enough poisons for it to be viable. But as a general rule, you want to get one with Last Resort,
Right.
um, just so
And
that it
if
can
you evolve during this coming community day, it will get psychic,
Psychic.
not last
Yeah,
resort. So either wait till after or just go ahead and get, an okay psychic one and start grinding for a last resort
yeah,
one, which unfortunately will take the elite TM.
yeah.
But
Unless we get a Community Day Classic for EV, which I don't
yeah,
suspect we
maybe.
will, but you never know. Um, you
On
never
on
know what
that topic
Niantic's
though,
going to do.
oh no, absolutely not. But on that topic, another one I'd recommend would be Sylveon,
Yeah,
another Eevee evolution. Its community day move is Psyshock,
yep.
which is a psychic type move, just like Umbreon with psychic. But more importantly, it's its cheapest move. And as a charmer, especially, it really wants to have
A cheap.
cheap charge moves
Yeah,
as
yeah.
much as possible.
And so it's really good in Ultra League and it's viable in Master League with that move
Yes.
especially. It's a little glassy. It's compared to the other Great League Charmers. Like I don't think I would ever find a reason to choose it over Wigglytuff. Um,
Yeah.
but it's Sylveon's got great play, and you need the Community Day move specifically because it makes it get to a charge move.
Right. And most of those others charmers fall away once you get up to Ultra and especially Master League. I
Yep.
mean, you're talking Master League, it's basically Togekiss. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Uh, or Sylveon. I
Yeah.
mean, those are your
That's it.
only charm choices, really.
Or Hundo Primarina slowly once it
That's true.
once it gets
That's
Hydro
true.
Pump, I think it'll make some waves. And I have to call that
Oh,
out because
that's
one of my factions players is a diehard Hundo Primarina fan in Master League, so I know he's going to
yeah.
appreciate the shout out. But he was, oh no, we've got three options. That's still not many. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I really love Jumpluff. When they gave it Fairy Wind, I think that really
Yes.
improved it. A ideal IV Jumpluff can actually beat Altaria, which is kind of crazy um, because of the fairy damage adding up. And Acrobatics is an insane move. I'm
It
scared to
is.
see what ends up getting Acrobatics in the future because right now it's just Jumpluff.
It was a hair slow when it had just Bullet
Bullet
Seed,
Seed.
but you're right, with Fairy Wind, it's really starting to take off.
Yeah, and so I think I'm working on building a Jumpluff team. Obviously, is my avatar is a Jumpluff, right? I love this stupid dandelion Pokemon. He amuses me greatly. I do think he just needs to be explored a little deeper in how it plays in the meta. Obviously, he doesn't like Noctowl Winter, as I'm going to keep calling it. Um, so, he's got an odd place to fit into the meta, but Acrobatics hits super hard. So he does have play. He does have bulk. Getting one now, especially for Silph Cups, I think is a good investment. He's not too expensive.
Yep,
Um,
agreed.
and then I think the only other one worth mentioning, well, Samurot's coming. Yeah, Samurot, if your name is Stone Collection, is world caliber. Uh, uh, I'm not that good with Samurott, but Stone Collection took him to Worlds. It's very fast because it uses Fury Cutter to get to Hydro Pump, and it's got Mega Horn for very strong coverage. I think it's actually got a lot of play when people know how to use it and get the good break points. So consider
It,
that.
it is a water type that
Yeah,
can shred psychics and darks and even some grass types because of its bug moves.
yeah.
Very unique.
So it's one of those that has great coverage, and water is one of the best defensive typings too. So it likes that.
Yep.
And then I guess Obstagoon is the Community Day move is not made any waves. It's bad because you
Yeah.
need cross chop for coverage, and so that you can kill the steals fast enough since counter isn't stab.
Right.
But getting a good Obstagoon if you don't have one, this is a great time to grab them. I think.
And same thing with, I'd say, Dragonite.
Yep.
It doesn't really want to have its community day move, Draco Meteor.
Yep.
But it does, like we were talking about earlier, want Dragon Claw and Superpower. So grind for a good one.
Yep.
Just wait to evolve it until after Community Day.
And Dragonair, its pre-evolution is amazing
Yes.
because it's very bulky and it's got Body Slam Aqua Tail. So it's just always pressuring fast moves.
It
Obviously,
just got Body Slam this season, so that's still kind of taken off. Yeah.
and I love that. I mean, we're talking about dragons as well as, again, Hydreigon is not going to see a ton of play. It's a great raid Pokemon with Brutal Slam.
Yes.
So, grind them for that. But Zweilous, the middle evolution, is a favorite in Great League because it's got Body Slam. I think a good Guzzlord is outpaced it for filling that
A little
role.
bit. Yeah.
But I think Zweilous is still very good, and Body Slam
Yes.
is always a great move. So yeah,
Agreed.
those would be my top picks. I think for what to like really hunt. If you're really just looking for more stuff, I really like Alolan Graveler, the middle
hmm
evolution with Volt Switch.
But you do not? Yeah, you do. Oh, for Graveler, yeah, it doesn't
the
have
middle one.
rollout.
Golem
Yep.
is also viable, but you don't want rollout on it either.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's one of those puzzling moves. It's like it's worse than what it already has. Why do we want that? But,
Yeah, and it's not a raid Pokemon, so why?
right.
I mean, they've
Yeah, it's
definitely
an
made some
awkward
odd
spot.
choices with moves. We've gotten a lot of really good Pokemon for Community Days, and a lot of really good shinies, which I think is what most people's number one look to is. But there have been some odd choices where, like, oh, these Community Days are notably worse than what they
hmm
normally have. And then I think we
Yeah.
figured out it's basically that they want to introduce a move into the game before they give it to other stuff, like Meteor Beam
Yeah.
on Roggenrola.
And
No one is
Poltergeist.
using Roggenrola, but Meteor
Right.
Beam, man, when they put it on Aurorus, sign me up.
And then there's only two more. This is a great list. There's only two more I want to mention real quick
Go
though.
for it.
Garchomp
Mm-hmm.
gets Earth Power. It's really only good in PvP in Master League because it's kind of glassy in the other leagues.
I have definitely run it in Great
But
Leagues.
if you're
That's
going to
for
run
sure.
Garchomp, you definitely want Earth Power.
Yeah.
And then the only other one I had was of particular note and I've lost her. Oh, Roserade
Mm-hmm.
is a excellent like wild card kind of Pokemon because it has fantastic grass damage and super high attack. It really hurts. It comes with the a fire move, Weather Ball, which is super spammy with it. So it's a grass type that does all the stuff you want a grass to do, but it can burn through, even stuff like Skarmory or
A grass
the
type
right
that does
situation,
fire,
even
poison,
thing.
and grass damage. Great, perfect.
Yeah,
Which is actually really
great.
good. Yeah, I like Roserade a lot. I think it's got some fun play. It's glassy, but it gets to its moves so fast that it's okay.
Yep, and
I
it
would,
gets a fast move and a charge
yeah,
move when you evolve it on Community Day, both exclusive. So
yeah,
get a couple of
definitely
those
good.
if you can.
And just if Niantic, if you're listening, I like when you give very aggressive moves to very frail Pokemon because then it makes it worth running them. When we give very aggressive moves to bulky Pokemon, why would we ever run the glassy stuff? So keep doing stuff like Roserade because I'm all for ridiculous glass cannons that do fun stuff.
Yeah, I think this is a good list.
Yeah, awesome. So we will end here now that we've done all the important stuff with what Pokemon are you looking most forward to getting in the game? What are your top choices? We still got Galar and Alola missing a lot, and Scarlet Violet just came out, so there's a lot of fun potential ones there. What do you want
Uh,
most?
that is an excellent question, which I should have researched more before we got on. So I'll give away my dirty secret. I have never played, and this might get me thrown right off the podcast. I have never played a Pokemon game until Go.
I know a lot of people are like
Like
that.
I didn't grow up with it,
Yeah,
so
that's totally fine. I played Blue when it first came out. I was a freshman in high school, to date me.
mhm.
Um, and then I fell out just because I got busy, not because I didn't like the Pokemon games. And then my daughter, when she got back into them, and that got me back into it. And then we started playing Pokemon Go because we were living in Ireland and we could walk through woods 5 minutes from our house. It's like, why wouldn't we play a game to encourage roaming around and sneaking into hotels at night to catch wild spawns of Bagons, which definitely happened. Um,
uh,
but so it's okay, there's nothing wrong with people who've only played Pokemon Go. Like I'm no gatekeeper on that. Um, but surely you've seen pictures of stuff and you're like, I think
oh yeah,
I
sure.
want that. That's
So
enough.
there's Colossal, which I know is still
Oh
coming.
yeah, yeah.
That one looks like a lot of fun. There's some wacky stuff that just came out in the newest game that it's like um, a couple I can think of offhand, like the uh, trio and the Diglett that are water
Wiglet.
types
Oh
instead.
god, Wig Trio. It's
Yeah,
one of the
stuff like
worst
that.
game, and he's Nightmare Fuel, which means I'm gonna play him because it's just like
That's
everything
right.
about him feels wrong. And even more, I'm super excited for the Tentacruel reskin. Have you seen him?
Yes,
Uh,
yes, I have.
he runs like a character from Scooby Doo with its derpy little tentacle feet. And so first of all, I love how dumb his design is. But second of all, he's grass ground, which I also love. So I really hope he becomes viable um, when he comes out
Yep.
because I absolutely just love like how ridiculous Toad's cool and then Toad's cruel. Like they're land squid. They're running around on spindly little spaghetti legs, and it amuses me greatly. Right? It's like
So
Flamigo.
speaking of spindly legs, one I just thought of Cleaver. I'm looking forward to
Oh
that.
yeah, Cleavor is going to be great from Arceus. Art like that's the thing. It's an exciting point for Pokemon Go because we've just had some really good new Pokemon drop, both with Arceus and with Scarlet Violet now, and we're not even really into Galar. So like, there's
Right.
so many fun new designs because we're gonna, I don't want to dive into the Scarlet Violet debacle on a Pokemon Go podcast. There were performance issues at launch. They clearly needed to get
Yeah.
the game out for Black Friday. They have mostly patched them. I'm having fun with it, but for all the flaws of it, the Pokemon designs in Scarlet Violet have had so many really solid hits, really
Mm.
good, interesting designs. Because I was really let down by a lot of the Galar designs. I don't like Zacian and Zamazenta. They just don't look particularly interesting to me. Like I love how they play in Pokemon Go, but in the
Yeah.
game I was like, oh, these are kind of boring. Um, Everything going on in Scarlet and Violet is fun. They made a bunch of new cute Pokemon, a bunch of new derpy Pokemon, a bunch of epic Pokemon. The new Pseudo is based off of 1950s Godzilla, which I love. Um,
Hmm.
the Have you seen Baxcalibur?
Yes.
Oh man,
Yes.
that his signature move is throwing his back spine against them, like just like the Godzilla across the screen carry. I'm in love with it. So there's so much good stuff coming out, and so I we'll kind of end with this. There are some legitimate criticisms against what Niantic has been doing lately, and I have lots of problems, and I'm glad that the community is openly talking about those. But at the end of the day, I also want us to think about all the positive things we can do. The PvP community, all the great friends we get to hang out with, and the cool stuff we can look forward to and hope that we can keep having a thriving and interesting game. Because I really like, especially that we're getting move updates now, that they've realized how important that is for PvP. They're really trying to do things to shake up the meta sometimes, and I think that's really good. So, business model aside, which I think we all have lots of things to weigh in on, and season of tickets, as we're calling this one. Um,
Yep.
I
It's appropriate
Yeah,
too.
yeah, it is, and that's 100%. I agree with the problems there. I want to also focus on if we encourage the good stuff they're doing instead of and as well as complaining about the bad stuff. I'm hoping we can get this dialogue going and keep the good stuff growing and fix the bad stuff at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I write as I do and have done all those articles over the years. Is there's always fun stuff to look at, and there's always things like we said at the start, things you use in PvP that you won't use anywhere else. It's a great opportunity to actually have some fun, play some of your favorites that aren't good in raids, but you grew up in, Gen 2 Pokemon that you want to use in PvP. And it's great in PvP.
Yeah, for sure. Like it gives new life to your favorite Pokemon that, okay, I have no regrets here. I have a maxed out shiny Ledian. Um, it
Oh,
hits
that's awesome.
it hits 1500. It's shiny. It's terrible. Um, but one, I have run it in cups because I love him. And
Hmm.
two, if it ever gets a real fast move that's not bug bite, it will
Yes.
genuinely be a viable, decent Pokemon because it's
Oh,
got
yeah.
coverage, it's got bulk. Like I want it to happen. Um, and so like I can get excited for Ledian's never going to make any waves anywhere else, right? You're never going to bring that
Hmm.
into a raid. Um, but I can get very excited because PvP gives new life to all of these Pokemon that aren't going to see raid life. But I love them. I have fond memories, right? Like I said, I grew up on Blue, and so Zapdos was the first legendary I ever caught in the history of Pokemon. So I joined Team Instinct. I got my Zapdos, and whenever I get a chance, I'll run him because I just love that Pokemon. And clearly, it gets outclassed by other electrics and raids. But Zapdos with Thundershock, Drill Peck, and Thunder, it's very viable. You can do super fun stuff with it, and I love it in Great League. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and so that's great stuff. Well, with
Yep.
that, I think we have covered enough on how to get into PvP, what to look to for PvP, all of this great stuff. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day, having a wonderful chat. Um, Anything else? Oh, and link right here for your Patreon, for any of your socials that you want to shout out now. Let me know.
Okay. I'll send them to you after, but
Yeah,
I'm
I can
on
find this.
Twitter at just JRESeawolf. Patreon, again, I think it's JRE_Seawolf. I'm on Reddit all the time. You'll see, my articles, my analysis on Silph Road and Silph Arena. Those are the big ones. I don't stream. I don't have a YouTube channel. I have a face made for radio, so
This is a
um,
hardcore content grinder, right? I mean, it's
yeah.
very easy to get on and talk an hour and a half, right? We didn't script any of this. We just had general talk points, and the time flew by. It's super easy. Actually writing, drafting, revising on articles, as a PhD student, I can speak. It's a lot of work. Um, and so, we really appreciate all the time and effort you put into putting out that content that's just available for us to read and look at and reference as we're team building and doing all that stuff. So it is a wonderful service you do to the community. We appreciate it. And I appreciate you making the time to come hang out with us. So with that, everyone, thank you all so much for stopping in. Thanks for hanging out with us. And if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below or email us on the email address put up on screen here or reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will catch you next time.
Take care.